Good evening. Welcome to the August edition of the Tucson Macintosh User Group, where we all celebrate National Bad Poetry Day and Green Man Day. Of course, we will remember D-Day and all those who have sacrificed for our freedom. We'll gather next on Tuesday, September 15th, 2026, at this same virtual location. In addition to Roger's report on application and operating system updates, Ridge's report on application and operating system updates, Roger and I will share some mostly true stories of the road to Macstock and the conference itself. Tonight's presenter at our virtual podium will be Mike Rose, who is here with us right now, although he's muted because he's still eating dinner. And he's going to help us understand how to be digital caretakers for relatives, friends, and neighbors. It's likely that we have all been asked to be IT support for our family and beyond, and this should help us give us pointers on how to do that well. In September, we have Ask Me Anything session, again hosted by Kevin, and then another special guest, Jeff Gammett. Not only is he a podcaster and friend of Mac user groups, he's also a digital artist. He will help us unlock our inner artist with paper to pixel, making art with your Mac and iPad. An iPad and a pencil and a copy of Lena Sketch application are helpful for this, but it can also be accomplished on your Mac. Sample starting points and completed images will be downloadable. I'll be putting them into the TMUG talk before the September meeting. Even if you don't think you are an artist, this will still be fun and enlightening. Under the announcements area, the TMUG Board of Directors meeting had been moved from the first Wednesday of the month to the first Friday of the month. All members are welcome to attend. The link to the Zoom meeting is published in the TMUG announce form. Watch Zoom for an open window for a survey. Are we going to have a survey tonight, Roger? And he says yes. It's important. It's helpful to the board when people do the survey, because it helps us plan for the future. Remember, when answering it, a 5 is a better than 1. The door prize winner in June was Karen Lipdick. Congratulations, Karen. Are there any other announcements? What did I forget?
For sale and
Yes, for sales. Yeah, are there any for sales or wanted to buy items from the floor? There's the poll popped up on my screen. And as long as you please take care of that before you exit the Zoom meeting, because it's going to go away. Are there any for sales or wanted to buys? In that case, I'm going to turn it over to Ridge for his app and OS updates. Some of the updates that were published in a newsletter for Mac and iOS OS have been updated since that point in time. So take it away, Ridge.
okay, here we go. Okay, here's a tech update for 2 months this time. And here's the software updates for those software that's Mac compatible. And look at 1Password. So if you're using that, you want to make that update. And Carbon Copy Cloner on the left there is a one you will probably want to make sure you're updated on. And if you're using Firefox, make sure you got the current one. And on the right, you'll see Little Snitch if you're using that, and Microsoft Office. You want to get that too, and Spam Sieve for sure. And Zoom Workplace today is 715. And the software released by Apple or their operating systems. Tahoe had several, and Sonoma, if you're still back on that, and Sequoia. And of course, iOS, and you can see the iOS and iPad updates. And probably nobody's using Vision OS, but that got updates. And here's the apps that Apple publishes that have had updates. And Keynote, Numbers, and Pages, which were the old iWork apps, they're now being updated separately. And no firmware so far. And now coming in beta or release candidate. We're waiting for a 27 and 28 on most everything. Apple and disasters. Last Sunday, Indonesia was struck by a magnitude 7.7 earthquake. A lot of damage, and about 70 lost their lives so far. And on Tuesday, today, Tim Cook said they're grateful for the first responders, and they're going to be helping those and supporting their relief efforts. And Apple routinely donates to relief efforts worldwide. Now, in their third quarter financial report, which was the strongest June quarter on record, and it happened to that one quarter beat the entire year income when Tim Cook first came online. And everything was up over year, and they declared a dividend. And there are back to school sales that are still going on. And if you buy a new MacBook Pro from Apple, you get a $150 gift card. And if you buy a MacBook Air and an iPad Pro, so forth, you'll get a $100 gift card. Best Buy is also having a back to school sale. $500 off of a 14-inch MacBook Pro with an M5 Max of 2 terabytes, and $500 off the 16-inch MacBook Pro M5 Max with 48 gigs of RAM. And miscellaneously, Apple recently became a $5 trillion company based on their market capitalization when the stock briefly surpassed the 340 mark. That stock price, though, bounces up and down. So here's another miscellaneous item. These are Macs that is not going to be running Golden Gate, Mac OS 27, the 2019 Mac Pro, and the 2019 Mac Pro 16-inch, and the 2020 MacBook Pro 13 with 4 Thunderbolt 3s, and the 27-inch iMac from 2020. Those are not going to be running Golden Gate. The price issues are an issue right now. And Tim Cook has said that Apple could no longer mitigate the soaring increases in cost of memory chips and storage chips, which are the high prices were driven by the high demand for them from companies running a growing number of artificial intelligence servers. And so as a result, Apple was forced to raise its prices on some of its products. Samsung, Microsoft, Sony, and Dell also raised their prices. And these are the price issues. Probably the biggest ones with the iPad Pro there at $200 up, and a MacBook Air up 200, and a MacBook Pro up 300, and a Mac Studio with the M4 Max in it up 500. And boy, the Mac Studio with an M3 Ultra chip in it up $1,300. That M3 Ultra chip has two M3 Max chips. Joined with a high-speed interface. And now let's see. Okay, Apple has warned that Mac OS 28 is no longer going to support encrypted HFS Plus volumes. So that means if you're running HFS Plus on an external drive, you're going to need to decrypt it or reformat it ahead of updating to Mac OS 28. And supposedly unencrypted HFS Plus drives are going to be okay. And next year, we're going to see 9 new emojis for the iPhone, iPad, and Mac, according to the Unicode Consortium. And I like the lighthouse and the monarch butterfly. And for the MacBook Neo, and wish you had more ports for attaching external stuff to it, the company named Macstock has created a MacBook Neo collection that includes the $45 on-the-go 5-in-1 multi-port adapter and a $45 USB-C snap hub and a $30 Slim EX wireless mouse. And here's what some of them look like. And you notice that they're in color that match the MacBook Neo. The mouse and the power so you'll have enough ports overall to plug all the stuff you need to plug into it. And as far as health goes, a man was biking with his 2 kids and he had an accident and was knocked unconscious. Thank goodness for his Apple Watch that detected the fall and called emergency services and alerted his wife. He ended up breaking his collarbone and 7 ribs, but was able to receive help quickly because the watch gave emergency services his location. He was in the hospital for a week and was really glad that he was wearing his Apple Watch at the time. And as far as nostalgia goes, the Arnold auction folks ran a fine autographs auction recently and included a check signed by Steve Jobs on July the 4th, 1976. And they expected the sale to be $25,000. And at the time this check was written, Apple was only 3 months old and was building the first Apple I computer. They had to deliver them to the Byte shop, which ordered 50 of them. And rumors go, Apple is supposed to be working on AirPods that have cameras embedded in the stem to communicate to Siri, and they're currently rumored to be nearly ready to launch. And as far as the folder iPhone goes, it may still be on track for shipping next month because it's supposedly now in mass production. And then there's another online rumor that Apple is working on unannounced items called Home Hub, Home Pub Mini, Home Accessory, and Pebble. What do you know? And Apple is working on new Macs, so says Bloomberg. Thanks for your attention to this part of my presentation. And now we turn to items of security interest. As far as software updates with security fixes, Apple is the one that had a whole lot of security fixes to report. And look at the Mac OS on the left there, a whole bunch of fixes. And look, 26.6, 155 fixes. And even back down to 14.8.8, 127 fixes. And then iOS, of course, had a bunch of fixes as well. Even back to 18, iOS 18. And on the right column, you had the iPad fixes. Big one being iPad OS 18. And even Safari got some fixes. The Watch and TV and Vision OS all got fixes as well. And where it says only one fix, that means that Apple hasn't delineated all of the security fixes. As far as cybercrime goes, XM Cyber discovered a method to attack the Mac without requiring a kernel exploit or bypassing macOS's system integrity protection. An attacker needs to find a way to access the Mac by directly accessing or through social engineering. And the attack involves the installation of a legitimately signed app. And when macOS caches the app's trust fingerprint, the attacker can go in and modify the app bundle with a malicious payload. And the easiest way to protect yourself from an attack like this is to avoid downloading software from download sites you're not familiar with. And don't install software from someone you don't know or someone who's not authorized to provide support to you. And watch out for links in emails or texts. Best thing to do is to use the Mac App Store or go directly to the developer's website. Now, criminals are stealing critical Mac login passwords via Pam Stealer malware that masquerades as the Mackie clipboard utility and using standard Mac mechanism that fools victims. Macwell reported that the company Jam Threat Labs identified Pam Stealer, which is a new Mac OS malware targeting users of the Mackie clipboard manager. They are using fake websites distributing malicious AppleScript files. The malware uses a quiet execution chain with JXA and Rust to steal login passwords via a Mac OS pluggable authentication modules, making detection difficult. And the advice is to only download Mackie from the official Mackie.app website or use the Mac App Store. There's a new Crash Stealer malware that targets Mac users by stealing passwords, browser data, and cryptocurrency wallet information through deceptive tactics. And the malware uses a legitimate appearing application called WorkBit and impersonates Apple's crash reporting tool to trick users into providing credentials. It's notable for impersonating Apple's own crash reporting setup and carries both an Apple notarization ticket and a valid developer ID. The dropper downloads a disk image named crashreporter.dmg containing an application bundle and crashreporter.app. The Crash Reporter app has a legitimate looking icon and is designed to look like an Apple tool. So when it presents a password prompt, in other words, give me a password with a somewhat plausible phrase, system preferences wants to make changes in standard artwork, you may be persuaded to comply. Apple has revoked developer credentials. So to mitigate this, the home appliance giant LG Electronics briefly said that it plans to suspend any applications built for its smart TVs that turn one's television into an always-on residential proxy node. It comes less than a month after researchers found that more than 42% of the games and other applications available for download on LG's WebOS store allow unknown third parties to route their internet traffic through a user's TV. In the good, Apple is still updating XProtect and Gatekeeper every month to stop scams and malware. And of course, these tips below is still good security practice to install updated apps only through official websites or built-in update systems and to avoid installers distributed through ads or third-party download sites, email links, or unsolicited messages. And you always should verify that the latest versions of software you're using are in fact the latest. Thanks for your attention. Of course, the overall moral of my presentation here is to stay safe and watch what you're doing on the internet. And that's all for me.
Thank you, Ridge. Okay, I guess I'm up next with Roger's help and stories from Macstock, from the road to Macstock. I'm going to move this window so I can see it. And I'm going to share that. Okay, you should be seeing the road to Macstock 10.
Yeah.
With
Yep.
Roger and I. Okay, so on the road again, Roger and I drive eastbound together to get to Macstock. And when we start out, Roger always starts singing "On the Road Again," and didn't disappoint me again this year. We have to go through a lot of states to get there. First is New Mexico, the land of enchantment. And then we get to Texas. And as we pass through Amarillo, the big Texan always wants us to stop by and try to eat the 72-ounce steak. If you eat it all in an hour, it's free. We did not take the big Texan up on this deal. The next state is Oklahoma. And we had some people following us by share our location. And when we got into Oklahoma, I expected Kurt to start singing, "Oh, Oklahoma." He didn't, but he did say, "Is the corn as high as an elephant's eye?" Well, I don't know how tall an elephant is, but it was as high as my eyes.
That's pretty corny.
Next up was Missouri.
Very corny.
But And as we were approaching St. Louis, we went through the Ozarks. And, we had to stop for gas now and again and a comfort stop once in a while. Our second night was spent in Hannibal, Missouri, the home of Mark Twain. This is a small town that derives, I'm sure, a disproportionate amount of its income from its relationship with Mark Twain, who used it as his home and as a place where he learned how to drive a riverboat. Speaking of the Mark Twain riverboat, they had one there, and you could take a ride on that. Roger and I decided not to do that and not to take a ride on the riverboat because we would have to wait like an hour to start out to go to the hour's worth of riding up and down the river. Instead, we decided to go to the Mark Twain Cave, which I had never heard of before, and I imagine Roger didn't either.
Nope.
And this was an interesting place. It was a cave that was especially interesting to Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens. It has his signature on the wall in there. Also had signatures of other notable people such as Jesse James, but they discourage people defacing the walls of the cave um, anymore. So we took the tour. It's a 1 hour tour, and you walk through the cave and you have a guide. And we didn't have anybody else on the tour except our guide, who was named Grace. And she was a very cute, bright, bubbly young woman who knew her job, knew the cave, and kept us entertained. As we were getting back in the car to take off for Illinois, there was a Hannibal, Missouri police car there. Don't really know why they have a skull with sabers on their cars. So just as we were starting to leave, the policewoman associated with that patrol car came out, and I rolled down the window and asked her if, aren't you supposed to be wearing an eye patch? To which she said,
R.
and then we were off to Illinois and got to the Holiday Inn and Alara Convention Center in Crystal Lake, Illinois. The first night, which Thursday, was an extra night and something new, and it was Creator Camp for Ecamm. And this is something that interests Roger. Didn't really interest me. I went and did other stuff in its place. Roger, how did you find the Creator Camp? Did you learn something?
Yeah, it was very informative, and the Ecamm staff put on a very well, a series of presentations. They had some guest speakers uh, there who were users of Ecamm and explained how each of them uh, used it to help their creativity.
Okay. So that was Thursday. That was the extra day, and it was also an extra charge to attend the Creator Camp. Friday started out with the not the presenter, the with Mike Doc Potter, who is in charge of Macstock, and he talked about giving life to old Macs and told us the many things that an old Mac, which you may not really want to use as your regular machine, how it can be used and be used effectively. And he dressed up like he was from Back to the Future. And Roger, once again, was on the job. He sits there, he has more hours in front of those controls for the video recording and audio recording than anybody else at Macstock, and doing his job in a quiet, professional way as always. On Friday evening, David Pogue entertained us with an evening with David Pogue. Stories, fun, music, and autographed copies of his book, Apple, the First 50 Years. He's standing there with Marty Gensius, who is also a Mac T-Mug member and a podcaster. And David has said that he will join us for the November meeting and give us a somewhat cut down evening with David Pogue. Although I must say I have not gotten a, signed in blood commitment from him as yet. So I hope it happens, because if it does, it's going to be an entertaining evening. Tonight, Mike Rose, who has he's even shaved for us tonight, and he's going to be talking about technology caretaking for complete amateurs. Now, this is something that I think is important for the TMUG membership, because we are oftentimes tasked with being the IT department and the technology caretakers for our friends, family, and neighbors. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm sure that is going to be important to pretty much every one of us. Next month, in September, Jeff Gamet will be here with his presentation, Paper to Pixel, Making Art with Your Mac and iPad. It is suggested that you have an iPad and a pencil for this presentation, because while he's doing it, you'll be making art as well. But you can do it on your Mac. And if you have an iPad but not a pencil, you can do it with your finger. So even if you think you are not an artist, still join in. And if you have an iPad, download a copy of Lina Sketch, because that's the app that he uses. And the free version is all you need for this application. Now, I don't consider myself an artist in this way, but I did follow through. Jeff gives us starting point drawings and ending point drawings. And I want to show you how poor of an artist I am. This is what I came up with from his direction. Now, his presentation was 90 minutes long, and it was probably, for me, it was probably more like an hour of just learning the interface. But this is something that you can do too. And you can make a picture of a barrel cactus better than I did.
I think
In December,
that'll still sell very well in the local museum, Bob.
thank you, thank you. In December, Jill McKinley will be back with us, and her talk is called Building a Personal Operating System with Apple. And it's really about when you get a new Mac or an iPad or a phone, even when you transfer stuff over, it's still not the way that you want it and the way that you need it. And she's going to talk about how to help out with that. In January, Allison Sheridan will be back with how the cool kids really use spreadsheets. Evidently, she needed to make a little extra money, because this was at Portello's, which is a place near the venue that serves Chicago hot dogs and Chicago beef sandwiches. And she seemed to be trying to make a few bucks there. In March, Chuck Joyner, who does Mac Voices every Tuesday night, is going to, after he's done with Mac Voices, he's going to stop by and do his talk on productivity cocktails. I've also told him that anybody on Mac Voices that evening is certainly welcome to come along as too. And if a whole bunch of them come, well, then maybe it'll just turn into a Q&A. Here's what much of the group looks like. Certainly not everybody, because I'm not in there, in a group photo. But it's not all slaving away over a hot keyboard. There's some fun games going on too. Here's Allison Sheridan and Chuck Joyner. And here's some more of the participants, and some more again. Now, the woman in the lower right, this was her first time attending Macstock, and she's completely blind. And she came by herself to Macstock and had a good time. I wish I had that kind of gumption.
Yeah.
And a few more pictures. Allison, and David Pogue, uh, Dave Hamilton, and I had it earlier today, but I can't think of her name now. She's part of the Silicon Valley Mac user group. And here's Joe McKinley again. Okay, well, thank you for joining us for this little journey. And I hope it encourages some of you to come to Macstock next year. It's always a good time. So now I have to find the stop. There is stop share. Okay. Stop sharing. Okay, now here we are back again. And it's time to turn it over to Mike Rose. Mike, are you ready to take it away?
I believe I am. Let me make sure my presentation is still up. It is. Let me see if I can share it. This will be a good test of everybody's technical acumen as we roll through the rest of the evening. Can everybody hear me okay before I try to share the screen?
Yes.
No noise. Great. It is somewhat steamy here in New York. So I've got a couple fans going on in my office. Okay. So everybody should be able to see my lovely curtain, and now you should be able to see my lovely screen. Is that the
Yes, we do.
case? It is. It appears to be the case. Fantastic. All right. I may or may not be able to see comments in the chat while I'm presenting. So if you have a question, you can just shout it out. Or if you raise a hand, I should be able to hear it. But Bob, I'll trust you to interrupt me if there's a long queue of folks waiting. First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank Bob for the invitation. I also want to say, for those of you who may have come a little late, I was delighted to see my friend of many years, Melissa Davis, pop into the Zoom. Mac Mommy and I have known each other for a long time. Haven't seen each other and yeah, we don't get to see each other very often. But this is a delight for me to be able to share this. This talk came together at the invitation of Mike Potter. So Mike, for those of you who haven't been to Macstock, you got the travelogue version of Roger and Bob's journey across the middle third of the country. It's a great community event. But it is also more than that. It draws people in from all over the world in many cases. We've got folks who come in internationally. I am from New York. I'm from Brooklyn, and my connection to Macstock started with Macstock 2, I believe, many years ago, when I was invited by some of my friends and former colleagues like Kelly Gamont and Brett Terpstra and David Chartier, and just really fell in love with the community and with the collection of Macstockians that assembled there in Crystal Lake. So much so that now I believe this was my third speaker session that I've done over the years. So really a lovely place to go. I highly recommend it if you have the time. So when Mike Potter asked me to speak this year, this was something that was really top of mind for me, which is this idea of technology caregiving or technology caretaking. You can pick whichever word you want. I'm going to use caregiving because I imagine, as was referenced earlier, most of you have probably had this experience of having a family member, a friend, a relative, a neighbor, somebody in your life who you have become responsible for their technology upkeep. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So before we do, let me give you the lowdown on me. Nice to meet you all. Mike Rose. I am a Mac and technology veteran of coming up on 40 years. My Mac career began with the original 128K, which my mother bought in 1984 for her small business, and I inherited that. Was upgraded to a 512KE. By the time I headed off to college, I think I was on an SE30. I ended college on a Mac 2 SI, and while I was in school, I became the one of the editors and the managing editor, the entertainment editor of the college paper at Carnegie Mellon, which was right in the heart of the desktop publishing revolution. So at the same time, I was a summer intern at Time Inc., and I got to see the old publishing industry, like the mainframe or mini computer-based publishing industry, rapidly sort of rolling into the desktop publishing era. And I got to be part of that transformation at working for the magazine company, working for Entertainment Weekly, working for Life magazine. I was the final technology manager of Life magazine in 2000 when the monthly Life was folded. So that gives my career a historical significance it might otherwise have lacked, as a paraphrase of Joe McNally, who was the final staff photographer for Life magazine. And I got to work, and I got to work with people. I got to meet people. I got to work with people like Joe. I got to work with people like Bobby Baker Burrows, who's a legendary photo editor, and editors like Isolde Motley and Dan Okrent, who famously founded Rotisserie Baseball and went on to wrote biographies, amazing biographies, not a biography of Steve Jobs. That was Walter Isaacson, who I also worked with. And I then went to, after my time at the magazine company, went to a company called MJM Creative Services, which was bought by WPP. Eventually ended up in Salesforce, where I've been for the last 13 years. While some of that was going on, and where some of you may know my name from, I was a blogger and later an editor at TUAW. So that was Weblogs Inc. and later AOL's Apple-centric blog. Also colleagues there with people like Brett Terpstra, Christina Warren, Scott McNulty, Laurie Duncan, David Chartier, Erica Sadoun, Steve
Me,
Sandy.
very briefly.
Yes, Melissa very briefly. Ken Ray for a moment in time, and the aforementioned Kelly Gamont, who has been my podcasting partner in crime now at Aftershow Podcast for 15 years, and Doc Rock. So of the speakers at Macstock this year, you had at least 3 TUAW former contributors, Doc, Brett, and myself. And just a more fun and lunatic bunch you could not possibly imagine. That led to hosting the weekly talkcast. That led to being an Apple commentator on Apple News, on cable news, excuse me. And I am an intermittent podcaster at AftershowPodcast.com. I'm an occasional guest on Mac Voices and some other shows. And you can find me on most social networks as Mike T. Rose. Bob, keep me honest on time. We're trying to end on the hour or slightly past? You're muted, so I'm just going to read your lips, and you can hold up a number or you can unmute and tell me.
You can certainly keep going until quarter after, 20 minutes after, and leave us a little time for Q&A.
Fantastic. Love it. All right, so let's talk about digital caregiving. This is a job that many of us have to do, did not raise our hands for, did not apply, did not send in a CV, did not put it on LinkedIn. But you are probably doing it, or someone is potentially talking about, or it depends on the circumstances. Maybe you are doing it, maybe you are the recipient of it. But are you someone who's had to try to figure out someone's password that they wrote down on a Post-it note that got wet? Have you tried to give tech advice over the phone to someone who doesn't know the terminology for Mac or iPhone user experience conventions and what things are called, and they're trying to describe them like a rebus? Do you have a family member who frequently gets full screen Microsoft support warnings that are phishing or scams, and that you're trying to tell them not to click them or call the phone number? And are you either explicitly or surreptitiously collecting credentials, keys, and PIN codes to make sure that legacy access to people's accounts is available without making it weird? You may be a digital caregiver. And honestly, like, it's not that this is, explicitly a hard thing to do. Oh, sorry, I'm just clicking the wrong button. It's not that this is necessarily a hard thing to do. Actually, I'm going to click that button for a second. So we're gonna cut this out of the recording because I just want to make sure. Yes, there we go. I want to make sure I can see my notes. It's not that this is explicitly like difficult. It's not digging ditches, but what it is weird. Like, the relationships that we have start to get potentially strained by the responsibilities that we're taking on. So let's talk for a second about what this means. are you, there we go, I'm going to back up. Um, how do you think about this? Is this caretaking or is it caregiving? Um, are you sharing this responsibility with a family member? Do you find yourself in a sandwich generation? Are you on the older end of this? Are you on the younger end of this? Are you caring for a sibling? Are the people that you're working with local to you? Is it someone that you can drive down the road 10 miles or walk across the street and help? Or is this exclusively happening over Zoom, remote desktop, FaceTime, and so forth? Um, who are you tagging in? Do you have a community of support? Do you have more than one person to rely on? That can actually, by the way, make things more complicated. So I'll share that my brother and I, uh, you know, thank God we both our parents are still living, and every now and then one of us will text the other and say, "I need you to tag in with dad or mom or stepmom. Like I'm at the end of my rope, and I need you to start with a fresh coil of rope and start working with these people." Um, and that sandwich generation thing is real. Like, are you caring for both children and parents, or children and siblings? Do you have someone in your life or in your circle who has developmental challenges or isn't able to live independently, and you're responsible for them in many ways, but including with technology? Do you have somebody who is disabled, who has a physical disability or a mental disability? Um, you know, there's a lot. It's commonly said that everybody is temporarily abled, so sooner or later, we all have something that we could use some assistance with, and it's important to be thinking about that, potentially in advance. So, given the audience here tonight, I'm framing this a little bit differently than I did at Macstock, which is not ask of others what you would want for yourself, or try to provide for others what you would want for yourself, but literally, what do you want for yourself in the event that you are cognitively or physically unable to manage your own technological well-being? What is it you want? Do you want, I think we all want respect. I think we all want to be listened to and included in the decision making that involves us. I think we want to have communication that is open, and that is dignified. We want, and I'm speaking, from my own perspective, anybody interrupt me if these are not things that you want. Um, we want autonomy. Like, that is a basic human need, to have that self-direction, that freedom to say, what do you want? What do you not want? Like, whether this is simply, hey, I'd like you to burn my hard drives, or burn my browser history, a common request. Or is there a digital bequest I'd like to make? Like, I'd like a grandchild to have my movie files, or I'd like to leave a digital diary, or a legacy package for my family or my kids. There's this concept called five wishes, which comes out of the Catholic tradition, and I think actually Mother Teresa's order, which is focused on articulating in advance what do you want, like what do you want at the end of life, or what do you want if you're incapacitated or unable to express your wishes. And it's interesting to frame that around technology. Like, what do I want to happen to my devices, physical devices, or my Mac, or my PC, or my projector? But also, what do I want to have happen to my data? What do I want to have happen to my stuff, my photos, and so forth? Um, it's important, again, to communicate around this, but also recognize, when things are changing, when you are at a liminal point, a transition point, because it is not uncommon for that realization to happen after it is really obvious, like after there's been an accident, a broken bone, a fall, a hospitalization, and suddenly we have to think about things in a different way. Now, we're going to talk about like what the big challenge is sometime in a minute, but the important thing here is to have this grounded in trust. I will say that one of the things that we talked about briefly at Macstock, and I think is important, is that the trust piece gets complicated when you're working with someone who maybe has memory issues, or is cognitively compromised, and can't be a reliable narrator of their own experience. I had a situation with a family member last year, I think, where I had asked them to go to buy a Microsoft Office license because we were upgrading their computer. They needed to subscribe. And then we didn't talk about it. And I went back, I said, "Did you do this?" And they said, "No." I said, "Great." So I went to go sign up on their behalf, only to discover that there was already a license for Word or Office that was registered under their email address. And I said, well, but you said you didn't do this. And they said, I didn't do it. I was like, okay, but someone using your email address and with your credit card did it, the thing that we talked about you doing. So is it possible you did it and then forgot that you did it? And so that, to me, as someone responsible for supporting this person, is like, oh, this now I gotta think about this a little differently. I gotta be in audit mode, maybe in a way that I wasn't before. And everybody needs a little grace and space. This is what I say at work. So what I say to my family, like, I'm going to give you a little grace. I need a little space, or you need a little space. I need a little grace. Everyone is, as it is said, everyone is carrying a burden that you know nothing about. I think for me, where this tends to manifest is in the text message at a like, unfortunate moment, or when I'm not at my best or don't have the bandwidth to deal with it. That's clearly not that important. But to the person who's sending it, it is like it's a crisis. And so I try to say, here's my service level agreement for those who've worked in technology. This is what I'm promising you. I'm going to get back to you within an hour. I'm on the bus, or I'm in the middle of something. I'm at the theater. I'm going to get back to you within this time, and then try to live up to that and figure out a way to make sure that you do make that happen and provide your time and attention in a way that is constructive. So, but this that just dropped onto our screen is the biggest cause of conflict, not just around technology, but around housing, around end of life planning, around really everything that might come into the mix. Is this question of money? It just is. It's the thing that makes it the most difficult for families to work together and for people to get along. And so, wherever possible, keep the technology conversation and the money conversation separate. Now, it's not always possible, because sometimes the money conversation is about how are we going to get into this person's accounts? Who has the password? Is the person with the password or the passcode or the multi-factor authentication, is that the person who has the power of attorney, or is the executor? I would recommend, there's some books I'll recommend, but I would also recommend talking to an attorney if this is something you're trying to sort out among family members. But in general, you want to make sure that the person who is the executor or has the power of attorney at least knows who to talk to get the access. Because legally, they are the person who has to take care of things. But practically speaking, it may be you, because you're the one who's got the 1Password access. Just briefly mention that I find that doing this across iOS and Android or across Windows and Mac makes it much more complicated. That's just sort of a general support thing. But if you can convince your family to standardize on a single platform, blessings upon you. I think that's very helpful if you can make it work. So there's two different modes here in which, and by the way, just on this slide, if you haven't checked out, Back Market or any of the other places to get refurb equipment, we were hearing from Ridge earlier on the price increases of everything. Getting an M2 or M3 MacBook Air that's 2 years old, at $200 or $300 off of list that's refurbished, an incredible deal. And really, I think both for the iPhones, but really more for Mac laptops, the Apple Silicon chips have been a complete game changer in terms of the longevity and performance. If you'd had an Intel machine or a PowerPC machine, you couldn't really count on it being useful more than 3 or 4 years. I mean, M1. I have an M1 Pro that is the machine I'm presenting this from right now, which is incredible. Like, it's still, far and away the fastest laptop I've ever owned, or used. So, taking a breath. What are the two kinds of ways that you might be called upon to do some family caretaking? Well, if you're familiar with Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, this is panicking fast and slow, because most of the time you're not in a crisis. Most of the time you are doing things to make somebody's life easier. You're helping them set up something new, a new phone. Maybe you're helping them consolidate data or migrate a laptop, whatever. That's tech support. It can be stressful. It can be easy. It can be a burden. It can be a delight. It can be whatever. That's different from being in crisis. In crisis is break glass mode. So in crisis and in break glass mode, you need to know what you have access to what you can solve, what you can do. There's two books I'll recommend in the slide at the end. One is called Get Your Shit Together by Chanel Reynolds, pardon the profanity, which is a difficult read because it's about her husband having a bicycle accident and the aftermath of that. But the things that she wishes she had known when that happened. And there's another book called My Mother's Money, which is written by a friend of mine and former colleague, Beth Pinsker. And that is about the financial management of break glass mode and what you should probably be thinking about before you enter that emergency state. Both really, really good, recommended. So what is break glass mode? Well, it's when things get weird. Somebody's incapacitated. Somebody is in the hospital. There's an injury. God forbid they have passed away. It can be overwhelming. And so thinking about it a little bit tactically and with a little bit of some struts and some superstructure before you get into this situation, you may be able to save yourself some grief. Those books are great resources, but let me talk about some of the things you probably would want to have. So consider this sort of your initial checklist. By the way, QR code on the first slide was a resource page with a lot of this stuff, and I'll share that again at the end. First thing is device passcodes. If there's somebody you're supporting and you don't have a way to at least have them assure you that there is a place you can go or something you can look at that has the passcode to their phone in an emergency, you're stuck. It's really difficult without somebody's passcode or other way of entering their phone to sort of unlock a lot of people's digital lives. Keep in mind, some of our older relatives may only have a smartphone or may only have a tablet. They may not have a desktop or a laptop. So this is really the heartbeat of the core of their digital life. You can include a device passcode in a password emergency kit. So I'm sure there's many 1Password fans here. 1Password has a great sort of printable emergency kit that includes everything you need to get into someone's 1Password account. And if you have that and the 1Password account in turn includes their phone PIN, you're probably good to go. But you could put that someplace else. You could put it potentially even in a safe deposit box, although again, that can be awkward if you're not the executor. You could say, hey, where do you have this written down in your house? Is it someplace secure? Can you put it in an envelope and give it to me and I'll leave it sealed and I'll only open it in case of emergency? Whatever system you want to set up, just make sure you have it. And when it changes, you track it. You can use Chrome passwords or Apple passwords and just store it as a wild or rogue password. That's certainly possible to do. Having access to their computer, if they have a computer, or access to their Chrome profile is really helpful. One of the good ways to do this is to log them in on your Mac and in your Chrome and save that profile on your, like essentially as a user on your computer. One of the big reasons to do that on your Mac is that makes your Mac a valid iCloud authentication device for their iCloud account. So you're familiar with when you log into iCloud, you get that pop-up that says someone's trying to log in from this location, and then it gives you a PIN on the second screen. You can only get that PIN if you have an Apple device that is logged into this person's iCloud account. So you either need their phone or iPad, or you need a user account for them on the Mac. Creating another user account on the Mac takes up essentially no space. You don't have to use it for anything. It's just a nice belt and suspenders thing to do. So I have user accounts for both my parents on my computer. I know I can get into their iCloud account if I need it. But I also have Chrome profiles set up for them, and I have their Google passwords. So again, if I need to get into their Chrome user context, which would probably include their Gmail. Again, that might be a two-factor authentication thing, which is a good reason to have 1Password or Apple passwords, both of which can include that code, or pass keys, which we'll talk about if we have time. These are kind of useful ways to create a shadow version of this individual's digital footprint. Great idea to set up a iCloud legacy account or a Google inactive account manager setup. These work a little bit differently, but basically, if the account is idle for a period of time, then you as the fallback contact can get access to it. It may or may not happen automatically. It may send them a request to say, hey, do you object to this? But in principle, this is better than having to either get a court order during probate or trying to figure out someone's PIN or password after the fact. So worth setting these up. I'm going to mention, I already mentioned the GYST. That's the book, Get Your Shit Together, an accompanying website. I will mention a digital service called Presidio, Prisidio, founded by a former DocuSign executive, and a physical thing. And if I have a prop, can I grab it? It's not physically in the room. It's big, and it would just be a big box, and it wouldn't be very visually interesting. But the knock box stands for next of kin box. Both of these systems, Presidio in digital form and Knockbox in physical form, are record keeping systems that are intended to give you a way to collect everything that a family member might need in the event that you're not available. So, and the Knockbox does this in an interesting way, kind of prioritize like what's the first and most important thing? Okay, like medical directives, medical power of attorney. What's the next most important thing? The passwords. What's the third most important? The bank, the mortgage, like and specifically like how does this get paid? Who holds the note? What is like try to pull all the paperwork together so everything's in a literal box. Said literal box could be fireproof or could be stored at an attorney's office or stored someplace else, but it's like in one place. And then if you want to, you can scan everything and then you have a digital copy of it as well. I'm going to share an affiliate link for the Knockbox. It is the only affiliate link in this presentation, and all the proceeds for it go to the Alzheimer's Association. So if this is something you're interested in and you want to feel good about supporting a great organization, if you buy a Knockbox, you can do so through my affiliate link, and I will donate on your behalf. You can do this on the cheap or potentially on the complicated by using a storage area network or a networked attached storage. I reverse those letters. I don't really think you need a storage area network for your family, but a NAS would be helpful. So most commercial network attached storage vendors like QNAP and Synology, the TerraMaster I just bought that's sitting over here, pretty much all of them, even like the Western Digital drive that includes their cloud storage, pretty much all of them have a way to share some of that cloud storage that's cloud and local synchronized storage with friends and family. So if you want to say, hey, family member, mom, I'm going to start scanning some of your stuff and it's going to land, it's not going to go in the cloud. It's going to land on a box that sits in my office. And so you have to worry about it being in the cloud. That's an option. If they don't care about being in the cloud, an iCloud folder is great. iCloud Drive folder is great. Apple Notes, which we'll talk about in a minute, is great. And sharing notes. You can share a folder of notes or a Google Drive folder. You're trading off a little bit of risk in terms of it being in the cloud for having everything at your fingertips. If you want to, encrypt PDFs with a separate password if they're sensitive, or if you simply want to leave particularly sensitive documents out of that repository and deal with them on paper or deal with them a different way, that's fine. But it's a good idea to have something which is shared storage, whether it's physical or digital. Let's talk for a second about, and one thing I will mention when we talk about passwords, one of the hardest things to do here is dealing with two-factor authentication. If it's not the time-based one-time password like you can generate with Google Authenticator and 1Password and so forth, like the cycling numbers, but instead if it's something that is app-specific or is, a local passkey, that can be really tricky because you do need to have usually the person's device local to the thing that you're logging into. So one of the we'll talk about passkeys. I'm not going to get into it, but this is just something to think about. It's like, okay, well, this is break glass mode. How would I get into so-and-so's bank account to pay the mortgage if in order to get into their bank account, I need their actual phone because that's the only place the codes show up. And oh, by the way, I can't get into their phone. It's not great. Speaking of break glass, some of our smart devices can do a great job of helping us be safer and healthier. So for my mom, I subscribe to Call for Help on the A-Lady. And that is, someone can literally say, A-Lady, call for help at the bedside. The Echo device will then connect a phone call, virtual, like a voice over IP call, to a call center, staff call center that has nursing help, that can call emergency services, that can stay on the line with her until she gets help. It's the life alert that you don't have to wear because it's just sitting there. Apple Watch, of course, can do fall detection. can also detect heart arrhythmias. Like Apple Watch is like, if you've watched any of the Apple, the WWDC or the Apple product announcement videos where they showcase the Apple Watch, it's like it's insane. That the number of people who are alive today that wouldn't be if they hadn't worn an Apple Watch. I will note with sadness the passing of Chuck Letourneau, another former Mac journalist and perhaps most famously a member of the Macworld All-Star Band, who some years ago wrote about in Macworld magazine the fact that his watch had informed him that he had a heart condition he wasn't aware of, and it changed. He made lifestyle changes, and it's entirely likely that extended his life by a decade or more. But he did pass away not too long ago at the age of, I think, 67, which is tragic. So, because life is short, do this now. Make sure your iPhone or your family member's iPhone is set up with medical ID. So this is the screen that shows up if an emergency services person presses I think it's pressing the side button 3 times. You can also set emergency bypass for either your phone to take calls from your family member when normally you're in Do Not Disturb, or on theirs so that yours rings through even if theirs is on Do Not Disturb. We talked about fall detection. Stolen device protection is really more important for people who maybe are in busy social situations and might have their passcodes, fished over the shoulder, because it prevents your iCloud password from being changed for an hour when your device is not at a familiar location. We could have a whole other presentation on accessibility. Allison Sheridan is a great presenter on accessibility. Assistive access is interesting. I'm not going to demo this tonight, but this is a way of turning a phone into sort of 6 big buttons. And the link is in our resources. But if you have a family member, it's similar to guided access, where you can lock the phone or iPad to a single app. But this is like you get 4 or 6 or 8 big buttons, and it's phone, FaceTime, Muse, like whatever the apps are that you want this person to have access to, in a very simplified user experience, and locking them into those few apps. So again, for someone who maybe still wants to be connected but has trouble using the full iOS interface. And lastly, you don't have to do it now, but it's important. You can take a hearing test with your iPods Pro. And my spouse is going to start using her iPods Pro as hearing aids. So this is something everybody can do. Okay, we got to move on. I want to mention a lot of your relatives are probably using AI to diagnose their medical conditions and ask for help and tell you things that you didn't know. Google's AI overview is the bane of my existence. It really is causing, I think, more problems than it solves. Just try to coach people not to rely on this for critical stuff. It's fine for a second opinion or for some context, but don't use it. I will also say that one of my relatives said, "I'm having trouble reaching ChatGPT." I said, "Well, what are you seeing?" And she took a picture of her screen, and you'll notice that she was trying to go to ChatGPT, which is not going to provide any help to anybody, but we'll let you chat with a therapist. So maybe I should follow up on that. All right. There it is, highlighted. Quickly, right-sizing AI. Here's one of the tips that I recommend is udm14.org or udm14.com. This is the way to get rid of those AI summaries or those AI overviews. It is the straight 10 blue links. And if you go to 10bluelinks.com, you will get instructions of switching your Google searches back to just give me the 10 blue links. But you can just go to udm.com or udm.org, udm14.org to get that experience on the fly. If we have time at the end, I will demo that real quick. I do recommend Notebook LM, now rebranded as Gemini Notebook. A great way to organize a set of documents. Maybe like this is these are for assisted living, or these are for a contract, or these are for medical information, and putting it in one place and being able to have a conversation with your documents. Really, really useful for that. And I'll do a note for the Senior Planet AI Guide, Senior Planet from AARP, a great way to get information about AI. So how are we going to put this together in 10 minutes or less? This is really just sort of like in response to a lot of people talking about, well, I'm going to vibe code this, or I'm going to create an app, or I'm going to create an app for my mom, or I'm going to create an app for my sibling. Yeah, okay. But like you want to think about how long does this have to sit around, and does it make sense to use something that is an n of one, that is only one thing, only one person, only one version of this app. Trying to think about what is going to stick around, vendor longevity. So Apple and Google probably not going anywhere. Similarly, iCloud Drive and Apple and Google Drive probably not going anywhere anytime soon. Your survivable formats, Markdown, PDF, SQLite, if you feel like doing a database. These are all sort of Library of Congress approved formats. PDF is fine. Like in 99% of these situations, PDF is what you want. It's fine. It's searchable. It's OCRable. It makes sense. What is sometimes challenging is backing up stuff that exists only in the cloud to your local storage. So, for example, Google Docs don't have a local representation. All you get is a little stub file. There is no local version of that Google Doc file that you just created with your family member about all their stuff. You can save it as a Word file or a text or an RTF file or now a Markdown file, but you can't actually synchronize it effectively. I would say that, if you're talking about which of these cloud vendors you want to work with, I would say probably there's a presumptive bias in the room of working with Apple. So you do you. This book by Joe Kissel is from Take Control Books, and it is called Take Control of Your Digital Legacy. Really good overview of some of these topics as well about how to deal with managing a lot of this stuff for yourself, but also for a family member. Okay, home stretch. I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat. So Melissa's talking about Find My. Bob links the book on Amazon. Thank you. When is it appropriate to add your biometrics? Yes, asking for consent, Melissa. That's really important. Great point. Find My. Yes, I wish I had put something in here about Find My more boldly. Such a useful thing to have. Because like being able to find a family member or at least find a family member's device, huge. Let's talk about everything buckets real briefly. We talked about the knockbox already. Just a plain file cabinet is fine. Using Apple Notes is fine. Using iCloud Drive is fine. You could use Evernote. Evernote's getting more expensive. You could use Notion. You could use Obsidian. I'm setting up paperless NGX on the new NAS that I have sitting here. But it's really about what is that family member going to be able to access and use. This is the affiliate link I mentioned, www.theknockbox.com/tmug. I'll put it in the chat. And again, if you decide to get yourself a knockbox, it's also that QR code. Everything I get in terms of affiliate commission will go to the Alzheimer's Association. So just going to cruise through a couple of these. This is, I'm sure you're all familiar with managing notes and reminders. Both of these are shareable, so you can create a shared reminders list with your caregiver. You can create a shared Apple Notes folder that includes the person you're helping and maybe other people. One thing to note is if you want to create an encrypted note or encrypted folder, that cannot be shared. That is specific just to that user. So if somebody puts everything in an encrypted Apple Notes folder, you will need their device or their iCloud account to get into it. You can't get into it via sharing it. There's a cute little app called TickTick, which is well shared. I call it OmniFocus. Ken Case, who is in one of the pictures that Bob shared as one of the longest tenured Mac developers, who began his career as a developer on Next. And that is where OmniFocus began, was as a Next app, not a Mac OS X app. And he was at Macstock this year. He's a legend. Believe it or not, you can save files and documents in a Google Chat space if you wish to collaborate that way. What I wouldn't recommend, even though I work for the company that owns them, is Slack, because Slack unpaid plans or unpaid Slack workspaces, you only get 90-day retention on your documents. So you should not use a free Slack account as a place to store files. It will not serve you well. But you should be scanning with your phone. Apple Notes can scan. It's a great document scanner, actually. It can transcribe phone calls. It's crazy. You can synchronize folders. Again, Take Control Books, great book by Glenn Fleischman, Take Control of Apple Notes. The stuff that this app can do is banana pants. It just can do almost everything. All right, cruising through because I want to get to passwords real quick. Scheduling healthy tech sessions. The one thing I'll mention here is that change is challenging. You've got to be careful. Like, I think probably everybody in the room is like, I want to upgrade, and if I see something that's like running a couple versions back, I want to make it current. Think about what that's going to do to the person who has to use the thing that you just changed. I also recommend getting either access to their router or maybe use something like Tailscale or WireGuard if you're feeling particularly nerdy to have access to your family member's network. Can be really useful for diagnosing things, or just jumping in and seeing. Of course, you can use a remote access tool like TeamViewer or even Zoom or Google Remote Desktop, which is my tool of choice to get onto their computer. But what do you say to somebody who says, I don't want a new computer? Say, it's not about you. This is not because I think you need a new computer. This is because me supporting your old computer is making me crazy, which will make you crazy. And nobody wants that. Yeah, if I get hit by a bus note, Melissa, great idea. Like, this is something you can do do a good favor for your family. Talk briefly about remote support. I've started using Tailscale. I think it's really interesting to have a dynamic VPN that you can essentially deploy on all the devices that you care about, no matter where they are, and they join a virtual private network of their own. Really neat. If someone has an Apple TV, you can use an Apple TV as a node on that Tailscale network, and then use that to bridge into the entire local network at their house. But do so cautiously. All right, 3 minutes on passwords, and then we'll get to Q&A. You can raise a thumb, raise a hand, shout, or wave. How many people have tried to set up a family member with password management and failed? Hey. No other thumbs. Nobody. Melissa's like, yes, maybe me too. I can't see everyone. Kevin is waiting. I can't see everybody, so I see a hand up from Lee. Thank you. So several of us. Yeah, this is a pain in the neck. And honestly, the further along someone is in their digital, I'm not going to say it. I was going to say something I would not want recorded. The further along somebody is in their digital care receiving journey, the less likely they are to be able to effectively use most password managers. I love 1Password. I use 1Password. I recommend 1Password. I've tried to set up every one of my family members with 1Password. You know who can't use 1Password? My mom. Cannot use it. Just doesn't work for her. And we actually just had a really important transition with Apple passwords, which is two things. Number one, they work really well now on iOS and on your computer, and they also can save passkeys, which is huge. Number two, there's a Chrome filler extension for iCloud passwords or Apple passwords. That is a huge unlock. It means that the browser of choice, and it's also for Firefox and Helium and Opera and all the other browsers, but Chrome is the important one because it means that you're not locking somebody into using Safari on the Mac and Safari on the iPhone if they want to use Apple passwords. They can use Chrome, and it works really well. The other thing, and again, this is the most amazing feature ever, the automatic entry of SMS authentication codes from iMessage to your browser. Oh my God. The years, the person years that alone is saved. So Apple Passwords and iCloud Password is a real alternative now, where I think up until quite recently, up until the browser extension for Chrome, it really wasn't. Like, you couldn't make the argument that was the right path to go. So whatever you do, try to keep it simple. Try to make it something that people can continue to use sustainably. And if you can say, you don't have to think about this, you just have to, whenever it says you want to save this password for this website and it looks like this, yes. The answer is always yes. And you can share a folder of passwords with family members, just like you can share a folder of notes. So then you're not guessing what they might have changed the password to. You can see it. I know, again, the professional password managers, the paid password managers like 1Password, of course, they all do this. This isn't new functionality. What's new is that it's bundled into the operating system and that it works. And I think this is a huge help if you're trying to solve this problem. Do we have to talk about the value of passkeys and why a passkey is like a thumbprint and a password is like a PIN code? You can't physically separate the passkey. There's no way to steal a passkey, really. You can't look over someone's shoulder and see a passkey. Okay, we don't have to talk about that at length. I think it's fun. And I strongly recommend figuring out password management on some level. Again, anything's better than a coffee-stained, double-sided piece of loose leaf paper taped to the desk. And that's not a metaphor. that's literally what I've had to deal with some of the folks that I've been helping. It's like I can't read this. You can't read this. Certainly, the bank doesn't care that none of us can read it. Let's move to something better. Okay, last thing, because this would be it's a whole nother presentation. And it's the reason I put it at the end. Scams, 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 scams. We can have this conversation at another time. I would be happy to come back to TMUG and talk just about scams. But one of your biggest responsibilities as a digital caregiver is going to be protecting someone who doesn't realize they're being taken advantage of and that there are thieves, criminals out there that are trying to steal their money. And that's really upsetting. Like that is a really ugly way to look at the universe. But unfortunately, it's what is happening. And so the damage is in the billions of dollars every year. And the vast majority of that damage is hitting people over the age of 60. So the people that are the criminals are preying on our family members. And again, I'll share this deck with you after. These are some examples that have happened to actually like pretending to be my wife, trying to change her direct deposit. There's DocuSign. There's now these invite scams from paperless posts and Evite, which are horrible. There's the Easy Pass toll scam. There's ransomware. There's gift card scams. And again, my wife is clergy, so her congregants get hit with this all the time. There's virtual kidnapping. There's voice scams. There's click fix scams with like fake technical support. There's the romance and pig butchering scams, which are the worst, absolutely the worst, because they make people believe in something that isn't real. I hate them so much. These are the SMS pig butchering starts. And by the way, sending me the puppy that's got meningitis, that's not right. That's not fair. Don't send me a puppy that's got meningitis. I can't deal with that. This was very bold. Like, you're asking me who I am? You're the spammer. What are you doing? Just send these all to make sure to screen unknown callers. Although, by the way, if you're like expecting a delivery and the delivery guy is going to call you, make sure to turn screen unknown callers off, because then you won't hear from him. And then you can also delete and report spam, which is the best thing we can do, which isn't very much. I especially hate the military romance and stolen valor scams, because these target people like my mom. It's really, really aggravating. And there's voice cloning. I'm not going to do that. But there's great voice cloning, spotting scams. And the last thing, pausetake9.org. 7 minutes to go. Pausetake9.org is a website from Craig Newmark of Craigslist. And it is specifically about ways to avoid scams by just thinking a little critically, taking 3 breaths, counting to 9, and trying to figure out whether this is plausible or real. Highly recommended. There's some great resources there. And this is, one of the ways that he is trying to make the world a better place, which is by giving people the tools to combat scams. So we're going to get to Q&A, but I wanted to leave the resources up here and the scans, including the books that we talked about, The Knockbox, My Mother's Money, Senior Planet, Take Control. Thank you all so much for your attention. I realize that was a complete brain dump, but honestly, there's just so much to talk about. It's hard to imagine getting through all of it in 40 minutes or less, but I'm happy to take questions, comments, and thoughts at this point.
Melissa had a question and a couple of comments. Melissa,
Yep.
are those taken care of?
I'm not sure yet. I did want to know when you personally have had to or wanted to or felt the need or would recommend adding your own biometrics to a loved one's device.
I have
But
done
with
this
consent, of course.
with a consent. I have a fingerprint on some family members' laptops.
Mm-hmm,
It's not straightforward to do that with Face ID. So modern iPhones, you really like adding a whole nother person as a face is not really a thing. But the pin essentially suffices for Face ID. I've added thumbprint just for convenience sake on a lot of laptops. But it's always like, it's not something I use because I don't get access to their laptop when they're not around.
Exactly.
I mean, I
I've
would say
used
if you're fan,
the alternate appearance for
yeah,
the Face ID.
alternate appearance, I use that for my beard. I've tried it with other
Uh-huh.
folks. It doesn't it like
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't count on that. I would just get
Mhm.
the pin. Like because the
Mhm.
pin is a the pin is something you have to have a conversation about.
Mhm.
Face ID, if the phone like conceivably, it would be very hard to set up surreptitiously. Um, but I
There
kind
was
of feel
just
like
a
the biometrics is beside the point. It's the access that's important.
right.
So yeah,
There were a few times where I ran into a pass key where it wouldn't let me do anything without a Face ID. So I ended up just
interesting.
putting my Face ID in. Yeah, I don't remember what it was. I should have taken better screenshots, but we were setting something up and I was like, oh, I'll just put my Face ID in.
Yeah,
Yeah, with consent, of course, but yeah, I do it with my spouse. I did it with my kids when they were little, when we handed them down iPhones that have Face ID. I put my Face ID in there when they were much younger. Of course, that doesn't fly now anymore. But
no,
yeah,
I can only imagine.
yeah, not with
Yeah,
the
I
older
mean,
one.
it's a good question. I mean, I think starting with the pin and then working like in those special circumstances where you need
Hmm.
a second, like a second factor or hardware off, fingerprint off, face off, can discuss it.
Hmm. And then the other comment I made, of course, it was about the Find My, and then also with contacts. I've really worked really, really hard to train my parents. It was really difficult because, we're all taught to answer the phone when somebody calls. It's rude to not answer the phone. And I said, no, it's not rude. It's safe. And so, I pretty much trained them that only answer the phone or answer a text message if that person's in your contacts app. That's getting more and more difficult. iPhone now has some pretty good tools in it where you can
Yeah.
exclude a lot of that stuff. So I've now trained my dad that only if it comes in your main messages. Now he'll get texts, but they end up in that unknown section. So then he knows to
Yeah.
be a little more cautious. And actually, this was kind of a happy accident. Way back when we had an AT&T family plan, we put my dad on our family plan, and so he has an Arizona number, but he lives in Pennsylvania. So that cut down on a
Ah,
lot of it too. So I don't know if it's something you
very
might want to
sneaky.
do on purpose, but maybe give them, depending on where you
A,
live,
a
if you're that
distant
far apart,
number.
a distant number
So
so that they know that it's most likely going to be spam.
super interesting idea. Yeah, those are great suggestions. I think the screen unknown callers is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it
And it's cut
is.
down on my calls a lot. I had for those of you who know John Brown, who used to be on the Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, was former one of the former hosts. John and I are friends, and he was calling me over the past couple of weeks, and I wasn't seeing the calls because he was calling my work phone, and it was like
Right.
he wasn't in the contacts there. So they were going
Yeah.
straight to unknown caller. And then when he finally reached me, he's like, "Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about my cataract surgery." And I was like, "Oh God, this is really depressing. I'm sorry." So I finally did get back to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a trade off between more stringent control. And then, as we all remember, when spam filters were new and Bayesian filtering was new,
Yeah.
like, and you could dial up the strictness or the leniency,
Hmm.
like it was always a bit of a crapshoot. Like, what am I going to exclude that actually I should have seen?
Right.
And
Yep.
same thing
Yeah.
with screen callers, screen unknown callers, screen unknown text. Yeah, it's probably the right thing to do 99% of the time. The chance of something being there, it depends on the person, depends what they do. Like,
Right.
if
Yeah.
somebody's a retired physician and still sees patients, I wouldn't want to do that to them because they're gonna miss stuff that's
Exactly.
important.
Right. But like we just ran into it with my mother-in-law. She was kind of against it. Now she's all for it. But then we went to a furniture store and they needed to contact her about the delivery.
About
So I
delivery,
asked
that's right.
them, we actually did this in practice. I said, so what number are you going to call from? And the guy was like, you know what? I'm not exactly sure. So he picked up the phone. He said, well, let me call you right now. And so as we were sitting there, he called us and we knew, okay, this is the phone number that they'll be calling you from about the delivery. And I put it right in her phone so that it identified itself as soon as she got the phone call and
Yeah,
knew that she could
it's
answer
pretty
that
smart.
one.
Everybody, what I think the lesson here is that everybody needs a Melissa, and if that were the case, we'd be in good shape.
I need one too.
Well, but what you're doing is you are creating the set of expectations and the set of best practices for yourself eventually. I mean, it'll be a different world when,
Yeah.
hopefully, God willing, when you need something like this. But you're creating a set of expectations and a set of norms that would allow you to say confidently to your kids or to somebody else, okay, here's what I need you to do for me.
Mhm. Right,
So
exactly. And it's already happening. Do you understand that I do have a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old now, right?
Mhm. I have a 21 and a 25-year-old, and I don't
Yeah.
believe that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I know. So
It's
they're
crazy.
starting to help. So we're trying to set good examples.
I love it.
Well, thanks for coming on, Mike. I really appreciate your talk. It's phenomenal. I love it. It's wonderful. It's everything
Well,
I could
thank you
have
so
hoped
much.
for.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's so sweet.
Mike, if
Yes.
you'd stop sharing your screen,
Yes, gladly.
I want to thank you for spending time with us and taking your evening um, and spending it with us. It's been very illuminating for us. But I have one more uh, job for you to do, if you will.
Okay.
Before that,
Glad to.
Steve has a
Oh,
question.
let's hear from
Oh,
Steve real quick.
Oh, I don't know if I'm any more important. I just a couple of things. Just wanted to say excellent presentation, Mike.
Thank you.
I was a little disappointed to discover though that you're based out of New York and not Portland, Oregon, which is the Rose City.
Well, Portland, Oregon is where Kelly Gamont, my podcasting partner, is from. So I have a 1 foot in there in that beautiful city. But yeah, sorry.
No, great. And
What can I do?
and if I got the email address right, possibly
But
maybe we can get you to present to the Portland group somewhere in the future.
that would be my pleasure. And yeah, we can plan that out.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Steve, I have one thing to ask you to do, and
Hmm.
that is pick the winner of our door prize. So what I'd like you to do is temporarily mute your microphone and ask your S lady to pick a number between 1 and 23.
I will do that right now. One moment. You just say between 1 and 10?
1 and 23.
Oh, geez. Let me ask her again.
Isn't it Mike that you want to be asking his S lady?
I could. She's right. She's around the corner.
She picked 16.
16. Let's see, who's 16? 16 is Mark Yarnish. Has he won a door prize in the last 6 months? And he won in November of last year. So, Mark, you are the wiener. And I will send a gift card off to you tomorrow so you can spend it unwisely at the Apple store.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
the Google form tonight for our survey thing on question 4, it refers to Mike's presentation and it gives us 5 choices. Choice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Five means terrific, one means poor.
Oh, all right. It's the same thing. I thought it was something about the presentation. Okay, that solves
Um,
that problem.
in order to get a 5, I will share with you a treat, which is the original. Oop, I'm going to try to put it in front of me. The original media book for the Mac from the 1980s, which is full of actual slides
Actual slides.
Slides.
and
Wow.
printouts and like
Cool.
a product packaging, match print. And somewhere in here is a picture of my boss. I'm going to find him. This I inherited this from him. Here he is. This is Dennis Chanel, passed away many years ago. Let me put this in front of me. And he was my first boss at Time Inc. And this is actual film that came off the Cytec system that was
Oh,
powered by the Mac 2 at the time. So this is
Awesome.
a precious artifact.
Mike, was that
beautiful.
book put together at Apple?
Yes, this is an Apple marketing project from June of 1989. Designed on a Mac 2, presented on a Mac 2, typeset. Yeah, this is an Apple. This is an Apple thing.
Bruce Tognazzini's name on there anywhere?
It may be in one of the about this book, which is starting to deteriorate, but I don't see it
Yeah, I went
visibly.
to high school with him. He was
Did you
he
really?
wrote the human interface guidelines and all
Yep.
that stuff.
So he did. So he did. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, there's even floppy disks in here.
Oh
So
my, what a
Wow.
relic.
Very cool.
put it back on the shelf. All right.
Fun stuff. You have to come back again.
I would
Yeah.
love to. Thank you all for the warm welcome.
Are you still in Brooklyn or?
I am still in Brooklyn. I've been in Brooklyn since 1995.
Cool. I grew up there.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in Kensington now. We were in Prospect Heights and Park Slope and Sunset Park, and we've been in this house for about 10 years.
Cool.
I did my practice trip out east, so next time I come out, we'll have to get together.
Yay.
Yay.
Anytime.
We have a photo to recreate with Keegan.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, Mike, the way I do it for a lot of I do consulting, and I have a
Yep.
lot of really, really old clients that I got them into using 1Password. What I've done is I've made virtual machines, and they're logged into their Apple IDs, and it
Mhm.
syncs 1Password. So any changes or anything that they do, even changing a contact, I have access to it immediately on my machine. So that's come
Yeah.
in real handy. They'll call me and say, "Hey, I forgot who do I call for this?" And it's the same thing as sitting in front of their iPad or their iPhone, and I could look up the information for them.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, that's the same. It's a version of the setting up a user account on your machine that corresponds to your family member, and that you would log into 1Password within that user account. You'd log into to iCloud within that user account. So again, it would be the same experience. But since you're managing a fleet, virtual machines
Yeah.
makes more sense because you don't want to have them all on one computer. But that's great. That's a great idea.
Okay. If there's no more questions for Mark, let's give him a round of
Mike.
applause.
Mike.
And
That's fine.
thank you
Mark
very
was the
much.
winner. Mark won the door prize. I did
Yeah,
the
Mike.
presentation. So
Mike,
Oh,
thank you all.
Mike T.
How
Yes.
do we give Mike
Mr.
a
T.
6?
There are no
Right.
sixes. There's no
Give
sixes
him
in
a
baseball.
one, give him a 1 and a 5.
No,
Get
no,
a
no,
friend.
no, no. This one
wait a
goes to
minute.
11.
I don't think that works. Well, I appreciate everybody. Thank you for bearing with me. And it's getting on toward midnight here on the East
I
Coast,
was
so I'm
going
going
to
to
say
bid you
it's later
farewell.
for you than it is for
Yeah.
us.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you
Okay.
again for your
right.
welcome. I appreciate
Good
it.
to see
Thanks again,
you.
Good night.
Good to see you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Are we done for the evening
Good show,
or?
everybody.
I think so.
Don't forget to save the chat.
Chat is saved.
Chat is saved. All right.
Cool.
Thanks
Melissa,
again
that
for the good show,
How do you
Cactus
save the
people.
chat, by the way?
If you go up to the chat window, up at the top on the right, there's
Oh.
3 dots.
Found it. Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
night, folks.
Good night.
Good night.
Night,
Good night.
everybody.
Bye.